Captain Elena Voss stood in the center of the grand throne room, her hands bound behind her back, with energy shackles that hummed with alien technology. The massive chamber stretched before her, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of 1,000 stars visible through the transparent dome above. Representatives from dozens of species filled the tiered galleries, their various forms of laughter and derision creating a cacophony that echoed off the polished surfaces. Emperor Thane rose from his obsidian throne, his towering frame casting a shadow across the chamber floor. His species, the Draknari, had ruled the Galactic Empire for 3 millennia, their reptilian features and impressive stature making them natural rulers in the eyes of most civilizations. His golden eyes fixed upon the small human woman before him, and his lips curled into what passed for a smile among his kind. So this is the famous human warrior who has been disrupting our mining operations in the Outer Rim, Thane announced, his voice carrying easily through the chamber's acoustics. How disappointing. I expected something more ... impressive. The assembled delegates erupted in renewed laughter. A blue-skinned Veltran ambassador leaned forward in his seat, his crystalline horns gleaming. Your Majesty, perhaps the humans have sent us their court jester instead of a warrior. Look at her size. She barely reaches my waist. Elena remained silent, her green eyes scanning the room with the calculating gaze of a predator. She had been captured 3 days ago while defending a human colony from forced relocation. The Empire had given the colonists 48 hours to evacuate before strip mining their planet for rare minerals. Elena had arrived with her ship and crew, determined to buy the civilians more time to escape. Tell me, little human, Thane continued, descending the steps of his throne with deliberate slowness. What made you think you could stand against the might of the Galactic Empire? Your species has been part of our domain for barely 50 years. You are children playing at war. A Zephyrian general, his insect-like mandibles clicking with amusement, stood from his position in the military section. Your Majesty, I have studied human combat doctrine. They rely entirely on primitive projectile weapons and crude explosives. Their physical capabilities are laughably weak compared to most species. This one probably cannot even lift a proper weapon. Elena finally spoke, her voice calm and steady despite her restraints. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? It is not our weapons or our strength. It is our refusal to yield when everything we care about is threatened. The Emperor laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Brave words from someone in energy shackles. But please, enlighten us. What possible threat could a single human pose to beings who have conquered half the galaxy? Elena's smile was cold as winter. You made one critical error when you captured me, Your Majesty. You assumed these shackles could hold me indefinitely. The energy bonds around her wrists began to spark and flicker. The Draknari guards moved closer, their plasma rifles charging with ominous whines. Elena had spent the last 3 days slowly, overloading the shackle's power cells by manipulating the biometric sensors with controlled muscle contractions and breathing. Techniques, a trick she had learned from an old prisoner of war training manual. Impossible, the Emperor hissed. Those restraints are rated for beings 3 times your strength. Exactly, Elena replied, as the shackles shattered in a shower of sparks. You designed them for your enemies, not for someone who thinks differently. Before the guards could react, Elena spun toward the nearest one, her hand closing around the ceremonial sword at his belt. The weapon was a traditional Draknari blade, nearly 4 feet long and designed for their larger frames. In human hands, it should have been unwieldy and ineffective, but Elena had been trained in the ancient human art of swordsmanship since childhood. Her grandmother had been a practitioner of European longsword techniques, and Elena had continued the tradition even as humanity reached for the stars. What the Empire's intelligence services had missed was that humans were one of the few species in the galaxy that had developed sophisticated melee combat systems. The first guard fell before he could raise his rifle. Elena flowed like water around his massive frame, the blade finding the gap in his armor with surgical precision. The second guard managed to fire, but Elena had already moved, using the first guard's body as cover while she closed the distance. The throne room erupted in chaos. Delegates scrambled for the exits, while more guards poured in from the side chambers. Elena found herself surrounded by dozens of armed soldiers, their weapons trained on her from every angle. "Stop!" Emperor Thane roared, his voice cutting through the pandemonium. "I want her alive. This human has just demonstrated something remarkable." Elena stood in the center of the circle, the bloodied sword held in a perfect guard position. Her breathing was controlled, her stance balanced. Despite being outnumbered 50-1, she showed no fear. "You see," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent chamber, "this is why humans are dangerous. We do not fight like other species. We do not rely on superior technology or overwhelming force. We adapt. We find ways to turn your strengths against you. And we never, ever surrender when our people are threatened." Emperor Thane studied her with new interest. "You speak of adaptation, human, but you are still surrounded. Your demonstration, while impressive, changes nothing. You will still die here." Elena's smile returned, and this time it held genuine warmth. "Will I? Because while you have been focused on me, my ship's crew has been busy. They have been very interested in the energy signatures of your shield generators." As if summoned by her words, explosions bloomed against the palace's defensive barriers. The lights flickered, and alarms began to wail throughout the complex. Through the transparent dome, the shapes of human vessels could be seen engaging the Imperial fleet in orbit. "You see, Your Majesty," Elena continued, still holding her guard position as the building shook around them. "Humans understand something that your empire has forgotten. We fight not just with weapons, but with our minds. We fight not just as individuals, but as a species. And we fight not just for victory, but for the right to exist free from tyranny." The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed. "You planned this entire capture from the moment I let your forces take me," Elena confirmed. "Sometimes the best way to strike at the heart of an enemy is to let them bring you inside their defenses. My grandmother taught me that lesson along with swordplay. She called it the art of winning by losing." The palace shuddered again as more explosions rocked the capital city. Through the chaos, Elena could hear the distinctive sound of human fighters engaging Draknari interceptors. The rescue fleet had arrived exactly on schedule. "Guards, stand down," the Emperor commanded, his voice heavy with something that might have been respect. "I believe we have underestimated the human species." Elena lowered her sword, but did not drop it. "That tends to happen when you judge a species by their size rather than their spirit, Your Majesty. Perhaps it is time for the Empire to reconsider its policies regarding human colonies." As the sounds of battle continued to rage outside, Elena stood her ground in the heart of the Galactic Empire's power, a single human with a sword who had just reminded the galaxy why her species had earned their place among the stars.